We're back for season 2.
Yes, it's bigger. It's badder. It's
Oh, just get on with it.
bad scripts.
Good evening and welcome to another episode of Bad Scripts. Steve Jones here, as always, and joining me, the man who needs no introduction, but if it's your first time listening, he does. It's Mr. Mike Garlia. Hello, Mike.
I never know whether you're overselling me or you're... I want an introduction now. You promised me an introduction, Steve, and usually give these buzzwords. So give me an introduction, please.
You're the unflappable, insatiable, fashion questionable? I don't know.
What do you mean by fashion questionable? What does that mean?
Well, it's questionable whether you have any fashion sense.
We both know I don't.
Oh, that's true. I was trying to be nice. I was giving it the possibility that the listeners out there might think you possibly just had.
You are making the assumption we have listeners out there, Steve, as well. This just goes out there.
Yeah, there's only me, you, and my mum that listen to this, so it's all good.
Hello, how are you, my friend? Lovely to have you back.
You sound like Jim Bowen there. It was like Bullseye for a minute. It's lovely to be back again, and you know we've had the summer and then the winter to write another season, and I'm so excited to finally let somebody hear all the stuff we've been furrowing away at in the background to make new episodes and a whole new season of
the new season. That's right. It is the new season of Bad Scripts, and this is kicking us off right now. So for those really up to speed from Christmas, and we're going to do some recapping in this episode just in case, because we've had about 3 months since our Christmas episodes went out. We're going to be talking about that and recapping and questioning, and then maybe giving a little few hints and tips of what to expect for season 2, as we're well on our way with that one as well. So we're really, really, really happy that you're with us on this journey.
And you know what's even more exciting, Mike?
What?
You know what's even more exciting is we've got a special guest with us tonight. Somebody who we've known for a long time, 20 odd years. You've known longer than that, I think.
Yes, Steve, I had to say this to you. I have to break this news that the guest we have today, I have known a lot longer than you.
There's not many people you can say that of these days, is there?
It's true. This is my oldest friend in the world. My oldest, loveliest, bestest friend in the whole wide world.
Ooh. We'll remember that, but don't worry, it won't be in the edit, so it's fine. In that case, I think it's only fitting, Mike, that you introduce our esteemed guest tonight. Give her a big build-up.
I certainly will do. And we're so thrilled to have you on the show and to come and join us. And we know you're a fan of the podcast. You are successful in your own right. Our guest today has lived quite a few different lifetimes. Our guest is an accomplished choreographer, a professional dancer, or even presented a games channel in the noughties in Milan, which was incredibly successful as well. Has had a footprint across the whole dance world, influenced so many young people, choreographed so many amazing shows. If you haven't heard of her, you certainly will do after this as you start Googling her, and now a very successful business mogul. Ladies and gentlemen and listeners, I'd like to introduce our wonderful guest, Alison Reilly.
Ah, yay, thank you. Oh, I'd like that as my ringtone, please. So, little introduction there. That was lovely. Thank you so much. And it's so good to see you both.
And so, Alison, why don't you kick us off with how we know each other?
Well, do you know, just before we were getting logged on today, I thought I'd do a quick search through my nostalgia box, I call it, where I keep all my old bits and pieces. And I found a photograph of us from 1999. So we'd actually already known each other a couple of years at this point. But Mike and I used to work in a nightclub together. We were both, we worked behind the bar, but we were also part of the promotions team. So we got to do we got to stand on a street corner giving out flyers in all weathers. And we used to do dance routines on the stage as well in Wakefield many, many moons ago. So yes, I'll just show you two here. But for people listening, this is a picture of me and Mike when we were about 19.
Wow.
Can you see that, you two?
I can just about see it. No
I'm
idea
gonna
what we're doing
send-
in that
What-
picture.
I'm
We're
gonna-
holding our chins in that
Yeah,
picture.
we're looking very pensive. So
Well,
yeah, not sure what's
what
going
we'll
on. But
do-
that
I'll put a link in the description, and we'll get a copy, a digital copy of that photo, if that's all right then, and so everybody
Yeah.
can see that picture there.
I mean, basically, the purpose of me showing it is to evidence that he's my friend and not yours.
Oh,
That's what's going. No, I'm being silly
It's
now.
okay.
No,
Now, I
yeah,
do have a bit of revealing information about our friendship as well, because Alison and I first met with me boldly walking up to Alison to ask her out on a date when we very first met all those years ago. And I've been waiting for this, Alison, because you said no, you broke me down. You were like, no, I can't, I'm sorry. And then, and of course, I was like, well, the next best thing is becoming your friend, but you turned me down.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And the thing is, you see, Mr. Garley is not used to ladies turning him down. You see, so he saw that then as a challenge to, well, I'm going to be friends with you then, because there's no that doesn't happen normally. So, congratulations for resisting the charms. And
I don't think I had much back then, to be perfectly honest with you. I was a bit of a novice. I think it was after that I decided, no, I need to up my game. I need to figure out a plan here. I can't just haphazardly walk up to a girl who I've just met and went, hey, you want to go out with me? And then a note saying yes, no, maybe, which is what we did before pre Tinder and all that kind of stuff. But Alison, just to kind of touch on that. So we're talking around kind of 1998 here. We're talking 97, 98, really giving our ages away. What were you doing back then other than working in this nightclub?
Yeah, so I was at university. I was doing a dance degree at Bretton Hall. It doesn't exist anymore, but it was a very famous performing arts college. The League of Gentlemen all studied there. And I was doing a contemporary dance degree, which I hated at the time. And working in the nightclub was kind of my release. It was sort of going out and having fun. And actually, I've got great friends from university that I'm still in touch with. But my life revolved around the nightclub. And if I wasn't working on the night time, I was clubbing basically every night. So yeah, and my friends there were my family, and you know, Mike was my brother. And sorry, Mike.
But again, there we go.
But yeah, we had some great times in the nightclub, and we were talking a while ago about we wanted to be figure skaters or something, and we started going skating on our days off. Mike was reminding me.
Bradford ice skating rink we used to go to for a time, and then I think we decided it got too quiet. But look, I mean, we've had a bit of a rich history, and you know, you came into Steve's life a few years after that. We all worked together in a very popular holiday resort, and all branched off into different things, which is great. And you know, Alison, to be friends with someone for over 20 years, as well as, you know, Steve, who, you know, me and him have been, you know, we've talked continuously throughout those days. I often say that when we picked up our conversations again after, and our lives have gone in very different directions, it just felt like no time had passed at all. And I think that's a really lovely testament to our friendship and the bond that we built back then.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's, you know, we come from a time when there wasn't mobile phones and emails and things like that. So when you left somewhere, you did lose touch a bit because you didn't have the mobile numbers, and, you know, maybe wrote some letters, but it didn't
And I
really
can't
last.
write or even read. I mean, because we came from a time when there wasn't school either. So
Well, yeah, there is that. But that's why I had to do a dance degree. So yeah, so we all sort of went away, and I worked abroad as well. And when people disappeared, you know, that was it. You didn't hear from them again. And it was only with the advent of Facebook and other social media that I've just gradually started reconnecting with people. And you know, and that's been really lovely. But you're right, I mean, we've spoken a couple of times on the phone over the last week or so, and I think we could just talk continuously without taking a break and not run out of things to say, because it's not awkward. I've really enjoyed it so far, and I'm enjoying this now as well.
I do have a question for you. I do have a question for you,
and I've got one too as well. So we'll
okay.
queue them up. That's good.
Okay. Go for it.
I'll ask you this one then. So we talk about not having phones and things and losing touch and social media bringing it all back. And the first one probably was like Friends Reunited. Remember when everyone started to use all of that back in the day? Mm-hmm. But my question really is, and this is one me and Mike have discussed, back in the days when we were working in that popular holiday resort.
Yes, the one that we do not name.
Yeah. Do we think we would have liked to have had Facebook, Twitter, Instagram then, like we do now, going off and doing the things we were doing then? Would you have liked to have it then, or
absolutely not? I live in constant gratitude that there is very little evidence of anything that happened. In fact, my memories, I don't know if they're memories or dreams or what, because I mean, you can't go anywhere now without being filmed, and thank God there are no films of our nights out. It was a different world, wasn't it? It really was.
Absolutely.
All harmless fun as well. We were never really in any trouble. It was just, we were finding our way in the world, wasn't it? And I do have a question for you around, your contemporary dance and your contemporary dance experience. Yeah, because we all know, I mean, for those that aren't familiar with contemporary, it's the art form is the dance itself and the interpretation of things. Alison, what's the weirdest performance you've ever put on in a contemporary setting?
Oh, that I've put on?
Or you've been involved in? The most artiest or artsy?
Do you know what? Most of the stuff that I did at uni was just so weird. I didn't understand it at all. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I thought I was going to do musical theatre. I didn't have a clue what contemporary dance was. I didn't do GCSE dance. I didn't do A-level dance. I did the famous BTEC in performing arts, and that's and that's how I got onto my degree. And I can remember in my interview saying to them, I've done ballet, tap and modern, been there, done that, I'm ready to learn something else, and showed up to my audition in those bin bag trousers that you used to be able to wear, like sweatpant things, and a Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat t-shirt and like a big thick headband. And they said, I want you to travel across the room, and everyone's just kind of doing this weird undulating sort of, just made no sense. Nothing made any sense to me. And I can remember saying to one of my lecturers, because they were going, we're going to have a motif development, and I was like, I don't even know what that means. And I said, is it kind of like a routine? And the lecturer just looked me straight in the eye and went, darling, routines are for showgirls. And it's like that kind of put me in my place. And I always was a showgirl at heart, but I had to kind of fake it through this contemporary degree. And to come out of a contemporary degree at Bretton Hall, which was very well respected, and go straight into a job as a camp coat entertainer, that was kind of unheard of, really.
and
I don't know if it answered your question, but
I think so. And a very different kind of education. And some people, and I guess me and Mikey, wow, there was a flashback.
Is that because I've called him it?
And that's it. Yeah. So this is something we haven't really addressed in the podcast. Now, Mike is now Mike, but back then, Mike was Mikey. So yeah, anybody who works with Mike now, if you want to call him Mikey, then feel free to do that. He will love it.
He's always Mikey to me. I struggle to call him Mike.
It's all right. I'm also known as Sod Off as well, so it works.
So what I was going to say was the sense that the years done at the holiday resorts is almost its own uni life. It's a kind of a slightly different on the job kind of education of a very different sort. But myself and Mike, that's we didn't do university, and that's the only kind of experience. So how did it compare to you, these two? If you've gone from one to the other, were there similarities or?
Yeah, it was a bit strange really, because I was sort of going into my first proper grown-up job. I mean, I'd always worked straight, like while I was at college, while I was at uni, always had at least two jobs at a time. So then going into my first professional, and I'm doing that with air speech marks as well. My first professional job, I kind of expected people to be of a certain level. I don't mean in terms of technique or ability, I mean where they were in their life. So yeah, when I arrived, and at 20, I was almost 21, I was one of the older ones. So there was, people that still didn't know how to clean their clothes or cook food, and like say, first time away from home. So yeah, I was a bit of a knob really. I thought I was a bit above some people because I had a degree, don't you know? um but yeah, it was very much like uni. And do you know what, it didn't take me very long just to go, well, this is how it is, let's go drinking and and
Make the most of
partying.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
so it was good really. It's almost like I had sort of 5 years of university. So yeah.
So we are mining you for lines here. We are definitely going to be adding that line into our show of darling.
Routines for
Routines for
showgirls.
showgirls. What a great
Yeah,
line. I mean,
and
that
we
is
have.
not.
But do you know what? There's a character in the new season that is straight from the Notebook, a fan new
Oh,
character. So
really?
yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I
So
can't wait to find out. I'm
yeah,
loving the stories.
yeah.
So
Absolutely loving them.
let's get into the show then, Alison. So
Yeah.
you're a listener of the show. You've been listening along to the show because you've reached out to me a few times with a few kind of like gobsmacks and stuff like that. So I guess to start us off, what do you think of it? What are you enjoying about it? What are you not enjoying about it? Just give us a real honest nuts and bolts kind of review, the Alison review.
Okay, right. So for me, it has been extremely nostalgic. Um, the where when you're talking about what's happening and where they are, it just takes me straight back to where we all work together. Those are the places that I'm picturing. And the people, the characters. I mean, it's you touched on this when you did the other special guest one, but definitely who those people may have some basis of, especially where the voices are concerned. One character in particular who worries about onions.
I didn't think that was obvious, but there we go.
Yeah, so it was very, very nostalgic for me, and even some of the scenarios and the things that were happening just took me right back. It was very true to those times. And yeah, like I say, just very nostalgic, and really enjoyed it. The Christmas ones, oh my goodness, all the sex scenes, and yeah, that took me to a different place.
The toilet to throw up.
But yeah, I care about these people. I care about the characters, and they are real to me, even though they are based on some people that I know. They are their own entity. And the whole thing about, are they going to get back in? Are they going to be able to do the job again? Can they be together? All that stuff. I care. I want to know what happens. So yeah. Well done,
Were you
boys.
surprised?
Well done.
Were you surprised with the direction we took it? And we'll do a bit of recapping in a moment, just for those that just to kind of get it fresh into those people's minds. But were you surprised with the way the story went, or could you see the path of, we had to go that way, or we could have gone a completely different way? We just never thought of it.
I think I was quite surprised at as much off resort stuff as there was. Because when I think about my time there, I don't think about what I was doing when I wasn't there.
The off season, yeah.
Yeah, and that there was other people's lives still happening. You're just in that bubble. And so yeah, to look at the outside and seeing what else is going on. The cliffhanger that you left it on with do you want me to talk about it? What
Yeah,
happened?
absolutely.
Yeah.
The spoiler will be out there at the beginning of this episode. We've put a spoiler on. So
Right. Okay. Cool. So So yeah, with Kelly returning to be management, that was just genius. I was in the boutique. I was like photographing my dresses, listening to the podcast. She walked in and I just went, like, oh my goodness.
Is the
So,
correct answer. That's the reaction we were looking for, I think, when we wrote that, was we wanted that little bit of shock and that little bit of, how can this be allowed to be? But, you know,
and that was just really, because that kind of stuff does happen. And, you know, there were people in certain positions in that resort, and you think, how the hell are you? And I think in any job, to be honest, it's not just there, you know, wherever you work, there's always somebody quite high up. Oh, sorry, that's my daughter ringing.
We got to hear your ringtone as well.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I was going to say, it's fine to take the call, but the ringtone. Ollie Ray Jepsen.
That is a special ringtone. Just honestly, she knows I'm doing this.
I think you were talking about, how did you get in that position? All companies do that, you know.
Yes. Yeah, so wherever you're working, it doesn't matter what job you're in, whether you're working at McDonald's or whether you're in like a high-powered job, or, you know, whatever you're doing, there's always some knobhead at the top who, you know, it's like, who did you sleep with to get there? Whose child are you? You
Wayne.
know.
Yeah.
Mingin Wayne.
Who have you got pictures of? Yeah, absolutely. But that sort of thing, like you say, that sort of thing is rife. And so if anybody thinks, oh, that's unrealistic, there's no way that would happen, we beg to differ.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people, you know, they can talk the talk, and Kelly certainly can talk the talk, and that'll be why she, you know, she'll probably convince someone to let her back in. And, you know, she's got some ability, hasn't she? She wouldn't be in the job if she didn't. So,
well, I think Kelly's a very clever and ambitious lady, you know, and Steve and I talked about this at length about, you know, who should come back, who has enough characterization left, who is interesting enough to build a story around without us retreading old ground and doing old stuff. And we realized that actually if you think about the whole triangle between Kelly, Adam, and Sam, and it's probably a good time to look back, when you look at that Halloween special, we had to address what happened at the end of the original show that we wrote all those years ago, because there's no smoke without fire. And Sam did hit her in front of everybody and paid for that with not having a season renewed. Now that I think is, and you know, some behind the scenes information on that. When we first started writing that, I kept going down a real HR route and like writing all HR stuff. And
Mike wants to have a full HR review with you want a representative from the union there and stuff. And I'm like, dude, you've got to take away from your managerial role that you do now and think about what you were doing as a 20-year-old and what we write when we wrote this. And let's focus on what will be entertaining, not necessarily.
I was just going to say, what's entertaining? Yes.
Yeah. So we had to we argued for ages about it. I'm like, no, look, we have to do it the right way. They wouldn't do it. And he was like, remember what it was like. It wasn't that formal. It was.
They would have just taken your card off you. You remember your pass?
Yeah.
Take the pass off you, and you can't get off resort, because if you do get off resort, you can't get back on.
You can't get back on unless you're sneaking in the back of someone's car, which we explored in the Christmas specials too. But I think we had to. You couldn't just draw a line under that. And we realized that with the Halloween one, we had to address it, and that's why it's very self-contained, that episode, because it's the day after the pie, and then for Christmas, we realized that we had to build the arc around Adam and Sam and what happens with them, because it leads the rest of the episodes that followed in terms of Adam having a complete and utter, you know, meltdown. And remember, in that first original script, it wasn't until we really started talking it out loud that we thought, what kind of guy is this guy? You know, because at the time we wrote him to be really chivalrous and he's the hero and he's, you know, but when we saw it looking back, we realized it was a really different take. And maybe I played him that way, but there was darkness there, and we wanted to explore a bit more of that darkness. Did you get that sense through the Christmas episodes? Yeah,
definitely. It definitely took a turn, and, you know, felt very different. So and it's good to see that character development, because, you know, I won't say the one-dimensional, because that's not fair and it's not true either, but they were more kind of that's what they're like. That's what they're like. That's what, you know, they all sort of had their very distinct characters. But then as through the Christmas special, it was like you started to see another side to them, and that there is more to them than the initial
And I think that was
sort of
intentional.
appearance.
Yeah, because we wanted.
Well, you'd hope so.
Well, this is it. But the point being that, and we said this, you would work with people so intensely in these scenarios, but you didn't always know that much about what went off at home or what their situation was like at home because you were very in the moment.
Yeah, nothing at all. Nothing.
You know,
not even where they were from. Sometimes it's just you know them as I nearly said the word there. As camp coat, whoever.
Yeah.
You know, and that's who they are. And it was like when you had Fudge on, and he said he just kind of reinvented himself. He arrived at the job, was apparently a bit shy. Not sure I believe that. And then, but then you know, developed this character, and that's who he was. And I think, you know, that's, and I've spoken to other people that I worked with since, and they've said, you know, they were so different to the person that we saw on Resort.
It's absolutely true. And I think we have to address the dildo in the room as well.
Hey, that's no way to talk about me.
Do we though?
So we introduced more of a backstory, especially to Donna, and Steve and I, and I'm keen to get your view on this one, because Steve and I, we really toyed with this one, and we kind of had this whole, should we write this or should we not? The doll, and the doll that looks like the daughter, looks like Donna. Yeah, it's uncool. It's and we were like, is this too wrong? Is this pushing it too far? The dad who owns a series of sex shop who's making this sex doll that looks just like his daughter. Was it too much?
No, I think the way that you played it was perfect, because it was just that, you know, when he's talking about it's my wife, and you could completely see how, you know, years ago that's what he started developing, and obviously as his daughter's grown up, she's got to look more like him. So yeah, I think that he played it well, and it was a bit of a slow burn, and when he realized, it was just like, okay, yeah, it was very I was kind of a bit like, what the hell's going on, you know? This is about a holiday resort and entertainers, and now we're talking about sex toys and such like. Whispering now because my daughter's downstairs. But yeah, it was hilarious though, and I think you played it well.
Oh, well, that's very kind of you to say, but I think it was a part of it was taking the guys that we were so used to their surroundings and sort of taking them out of their comfort zone a bit. So Dan, when we first meet him, is this really brash guy who's a bit loud and like, all right, our kid, we can do this and do that, and actually, once you put him in a situation like that, all that bravado ebbs away, and he's like, I don't know what to do with myself. And we just explored a bit more about the depth of the characters. That's what we tried to do through those specials when we had time to focus on just a few of the cast. So hopefully that came across. It sounds like it did from what you're saying.
Yeah, it definitely did.
Fabulous. And I think also as well, the whole so Adam throws his mobile phone into the sea, which meant
with
that
and that takes some doing, because mobile phones back there weren't tiny, were they? They were the big old.
No, they weren't.
You get a lot thrown there. But it's like back in the day, I think it's something you said earlier, Alison, you know, at the start of the show when we're talking about social media didn't really exist back then. So it's easier to disappear, and it's easier to cut ties. And that's really and we wanted to add that in. That was something we always had that said, look, he has to do that, which cuts his tie over a complete misrepresentation of the situation. And he's his own worst enemy for that. And there's no way. And then obviously Sam's like, well, look, I've tried and I've tried and I've tried. You're just ignoring me. Ghosting wasn't a thing back then. I think we all did it. So I think that was something that we knew we had to do, because everything that's happened, especially through the Christmas specials that we did, is informing the next season, like Kelly turning up and that dynamic shift, and what happens when she's got a bit of power, given that we know what she's already like, gives us a lot of fun to play around with, and gives us the opportunity to retire some characters, especially the ones with dodgy accents. And bring some new ones in.
Oh, what a shame. I think you should introduce them with some new accents.
Well, yeah, that's a point, and that's actually going to happen. So yeah, keep tuned on that.
You having fun?
We don't want to keep you up late.
Oh, it's, I'm talking about myself. It's my favourite subject. The one I know most about. No, I'm loving it. It's weird. I had a moment where you were talking, Steve, and I just thought I was listening to your podcast, and then I was like, oh yeah, I'm here. I'm with you. Because I've been listening to you like almost constantly. Like, I did a lot of driving on Monday, so I listened to a lot of it on Monday and then again today. So yeah, that was a weird
It's
moment.
so funny because a lot of the feedback we've had from people who like listening to it, what they've said is they like the show and they really like the show, but they like the anecdotes. But a lot of the feedback we've had is it's like being in a room listening to your conversation.
Yeah.
Like, that and I think that's the best comment you can ever have. And people will be listening to us going, oh, they're just having this great conversation and everything's connected together. So I think that's wonderful. I think people are going to really respond to this and respond to you because you're so natural. You're so good.
Yeah, thank you. I've been talking my whole life.
Well, you're very good at it after all this time.
Well practiced. So we've talked about sort of season 1 and where we saw that and the roller coaster ride that living on resort and operating in those circumstances in that time brought. But now we're on the cusp of a brand new season. We really want to know, Ali, what would you like to see happen this year, and what do you think's going to happen? Just anything you think is going to happen.
Okay, so there was the time when it was going to close, and then has it been taken over by another company, or do we not know yet? But I think if it's taken over by another company, there's always like massive changes to be made, and you've got the people that were there previously who don't want to make the changes and really struggle with. Usually if like somebody new comes in, everything has to be like super structured and like audited. And I don't know if you were with me, Mike, when we were working in the nightclub and it was taken over by a different company, and suddenly we couldn't give free drinks to our friends. We had to count the bottles every night and all that kind of thing. So
I think I got fired, Alison.
Oh, really?
No.
Oh dear. Yeah, when you say I'll have a special water, please, and it was.
Oh my God, we did do that, didn't we? Is that something? Do we tell people what we used to do? Do we give those bar secrets away?
Well, I think that's probably okay, because I don't think anyone could get away with that kind of thing anymore, to be honest.
Terrible behavior on our part. So we used to make little cocktails behind the bar for ourselves, but to make sure that the stock take would match up, you would pull early from the you're in a nightclub, pull early, that's
not that kind of pull.
yeah, the bird gets the worm and all that. No, what you would do is you wouldn't exactly give a full measure. And then you would count the amount. So, if you pull early 4 times, you know that was a measure. And then we would experiment with different cocktails of sorts and get absolutely pissed throughout. And I think they were onto us because they started watching behind pillars and posts, and we were like, oh my God, but there was the fear of it all. We were young. We were very young.
That was part of the excitement, wasn't it?
So if you ever went drinking in Wakefield in the late 90s, you were probably shortchanged on your drinks. Just to warn you about that one.
Not probably, Steve.
We can never show our faces in Wakefield again. So character-wise, I'd really like to see the new characters were all really excited to be there, but the old ones were a little bit jaded and know it all.
Has Alison seen the script that we've written? Because everything you've said so far, I'm going, this is getting spooky. What's going on?
Well, actually, Mike and I had a bit of a conversation before we came on, and I said a few things then, and you said the same, didn't you, Mike? Stuff that we haven't even discussed just
it's
now.
scary. Yeah, stuff about schedules and rotas and and the implications of getting that one wrong. And Alison was talking about it and going, because you've got it in your book, haven't you?
I have, yeah.
That's so scary because we started kind of covering all of that as well. So without giving too much away, because we're not that far into the season, but I think you touched on so you should join the writing team. You've passed the job interview. We need you. We need you.
Oh, I'd love to give you the female perspective.
So is there any, yes, we do need that as per previous feedback that we, when we were writing, in our solitude back then, it's very male heavy, and we're definitely addressing that this year. But is there any kind of particular character you wouldn't want to see again? The one that you're just like, nah, I'm not quite sure about you?
I think I'm not that bothered about a comedy character, Well, no, that's a lie. That's an absolute barefaced lie. You had the circus, no problem.
Vladimir, yeah.
Vladimir, yeah, I wasn't so bothered about him. Although, I'm saying I don't want a comedy character, but I was going to call her by the name that we know her by. You're going to have to say her name because
she's your favourite character, Mike. Who are we talking about?
She is. Karen.
Karen, that's it. Yeah, I was about to say the wrong name there.
Yeah.
And
believe it or not, we've done it. Well, Mike's done it several times, even though the word's not in the script as we're reading it. So.
Oh dear, this is because I wrote a diary the whole time that I was working on the resort, and a few times I thought I should publish it because it's exactly what was going on, what was going through my mind. But I couldn't, because especially now, like years ago, you think, well, I don't want to burn my bridges. You never know when you might want to work in that industry or in that area again. So that was kind of the reasoning behind it. Whereas now I'm connecting with people again on social media. So.
Well, without giving too much away, Alison, we were really excited when we heard when you said you had this diary. Are you open to reading a few excerpts? We'd love to hear that back page that you were telling me about earlier. But are you open to reading a few pages for us and just sharing?
Yeah, absolutely. Because this was in my parents' attic. I knew that I had it, and I hadn't seen it for ages. And recently, I went round and I found videos. I sent Mikey some videos of himself dressed as Flame Boy. And also the videos of the show that he wrote, Freaky Towers. So but this diary was in there, and I've got to be really careful now because I've not slipped up yet saying the words that I cannot say, but reading them's a different matter, isn't it? So at the front it says diary of a ... and then it says a resort camp coat, and it's got the dates, and then a resort dancer, because I started off as a coat and then had to audition to be a dancer. And then it goes on to the other jobs that I did afterwards. So like dance captain and choreographer elsewhere, TV presenter in Milan, advertising executive, and so on and so on. And it finishes in about 2005. But in the back of it, if I turn it upside down, I'm such a geek. I listed every role, every job that I did as a coat and what it entailed and how many times I did it. So I've got a tally.
Wow.
I've got a tally of like.
Oh, please give us some examples.
Oh goodness. Okay, right. So my first week as a coat, bear in mind I'd just finished a dance degree. I thought I was going to be going in and entertaining, and my first week I was in arts and crafts. Now I don't know if you two remember the arts and crafts room, but it was like a big room that was sponsored by a sweetie company, but it had no windows at all. So it was beautiful summer, and you're in this room with loads of kids and no windows. So it says,
blue, I take it.
Yeah, well, it says arts and crafts, make salt dough, pasta jewellery, painting, etc. with 5 to 12-year-olds. That's very specific, isn't it? I did that. I must have got bored of writing it because it says I only did it 3 times, but I know for a fact I did it more than that. And actually, in my diary, I'm talking about how boring it is, but then I'm excited because I get to present certificates. So I'm like, yay! I'm a professional.
The concern for me there is, if I remember rightly as well, there's all this arts and crafts and glitter and all this stuff flying around, and you're wearing white combat trousers to do it all in.
Yeah,
Didn't seem the most practical thing to,
those
to have to wear.
That uniform was really impractical, uncomfortable, and just not fit for purpose, really. But oh, shall I tell you a little story? I'll give you a little anecdote of that arts and crafts room. Not long into my work in there, I hadn't been there very long. There was a particular coat entertainer that was a bit of a ladies' man, and we had a bit of a snog in there when there was nobody in there. And then a few days later, got called into the office with the management. Didn't realise that there was CCTV, and it had all been seen. So yeah, got a gentle telling off for that one, but yeah, it didn't happen again. I know. What was I thinking?
See, what you needed to realise there was that there weren't any cameras in the cinema where Mike used to go and sleep on his shifts. They instead were focused on the art and craft room. Apparently,
is a crime, as you well know, Steve.
So, makes sense. What else we got? So I've got Anglophiles. Now, do you remember that one? So a load of French children came. The resort was taken over by French children, and we had to teach them various things. So I had to teach dancing. I was teaching line dancing in the studios upstairs to French children who didn't speak English.
I do remember that now, because I
do remember too.
The circus skill stuff I used to do as well for them, and it was like, wow, this was a vain bunch. These kids were crazy and unruly and like obviously you had the language barrier as well, which was just,
and bearing in mind, like, we weren't teachers, we were teenagers or sort of later stage, but yeah, that was a challenge. I've got check-in. I didn't have to do that many times. So Mike, do you want to hear my description? Find and distribute keys. give accommodation information, etc. And I've actually written in my diary, one day I spent a whole morning studying the map so I knew where to tell people, and then got in to do my duty and they said, oh, you're not doing that now. So that was a complete waste of a morning. But yeah,
this is going to blow your mind. You have to go on record and just say right now that we had no idea what was in this diary right now.
Right, okay, so no, Mikey and Steve have not seen this at all. I have told them both they get a mention. In fact, Mikey is on my second page of the diary because it was him.
You've got to read the second page.
It was him that got me the job at Butlins. I did actually audition in my first year at uni. I decided I didn't want to be a contemporary dancer because it was a load of nonsense and rolling around the floor. And I went to an audition. Oh, I can't even remember where it was now. But it was when there was lots of the resorts. They owned hotels all across the country. And I got offered a job as a coat in Scarborough, I think it was. But I decided, well, if they want me now, they'll want me when I've got a degree. I may as well finish my education, which I did. And then at the end of my degree, that was it. I wanted to go straight there. I wanted to do that job. I was ready. Missed all the auditions and saw that they had what I thought was auditions in Grimsby, where I lived. So, I mean, that should have rung alarm bells to start off, coat auditions in Grimsby. So I went to this hotel for the interviews, and it was for cleaning staff and bar staff. And I sat there in the interview and they went, and what do you want to do? And I went, I want to be a coat. I want to be a coat entertainer. And they were like, well, no, this is for cleaners and that. And I went, I want to be a coat entertainer. I've just done 3 years of dance intensive training. I don't want to be a cleaner. And they said, well, why don't you come and be bar staff and you'll have a foot in the door? And I went, no, absolutely not. No way. And I've just done it for, I'd worked in a club for nearly 3 years. And they said, well, we'll put in a word for you. And I can remember ringing Mikey and saying to him, I can't get in, I've tried. And he said, I'll put a word in for you. And next thing I know, I had a job. So thanks, mate.
You're more than welcome. And not the first role I've given you either, was it? So because it was you that reminded me of this other story as well.
Other story?
Yeah, I completely forgot. So I once wrote a Halloween show.
Oh yes, yeah. Oh, you always had my back, didn't you? So yeah, the Halloween show. I wasn't cast, and I really wanted to be a dancer, and I was getting more and more roles as understudy, and I was telling you earlier on, even though I was doing loads of shows, I was still only on £3.20 an hour, and they didn't know whether they were going to keep me on for Christmas, because they used to cut you down gradually until there was only a small select group of coats left. And Mikey had written this show, and he wrote the main role with me in mind. So it was called Freaky Towers, and there was Barry and Sharon. I think it was loosely based on Rocky Horror Show, wasn't it? Loosely.
The brazen rip-off of no originality whatsoever.
And I was Sharon, and me and Barry were lost, and he was like really thick, and I was like, oh, come on, Barry. And it was really good fun, and you had my back there, so that was like my first starring role
as well, wasn't it?
It was. Do you know what? Looking back, what an opportunity, that they let you, all the costumes, the music, the production, everything. It was massive. So well done.
And then we went on to write The Last Resort directly after that one.
Yeah.
No, and it was great, and you were always sadly overlooked. Just on that point then, Alison, and it would be remiss not to talk about this, and this is something we are going to address in the second season as well, but I'd love to get your take on it.
Okay.
And that is when you started getting roles, and because you've got all these coats, they're all vying for position, and they're all wanting to be seen. And you've seen, in our first series, what the chaps did, they create a boy band to get noticed and all that kind of stuff. As you were experiencing that, did that change the dynamic of your relationships with other coats?
Oh, definitely. I mean, again, I've got it in my diary. The diary is like a whole, say, podcast on its own, but you can steal whatever you want from it. I'm talking all the way through about, like, I've met this girl, and she's dead nice, and we're really good friends, and and it was all going really well. And then it says, I wish I could find it. I'm like, I got the part. I can't believe that I got the part. I was so excited. And then I say, until I looked around the room and saw that nobody else was excited for me. And people actually handed in their notice when I got given the lead in a show. Well, not the lead. It was, I was part of a group. But yeah, I think I'd only been there a month, and there've been people that have been there much longer. And they thought that they should have got the part. So yeah, there was definitely a divide between the people who were the performers and the people who wanted to be the performers, because being a coat isn't necessarily a ticket to being on stage.
It's not, and I share that with you. Steve and I have covered this before in the past, because we were all camp coats together, and I became a cast member, and I started performing full time. And we were talking to Alison earlier. At my peak, I was doing 7 shows a day, which is people seem, because you're on the stage constantly. I had 5 shows a day plus 2 additionals that I was doing as different characters, so it was constantly changing, and latex and makeup and stuff like that. But it's also quite lonely, because you see everyone going out, you see them building up this camaraderie, you see everyone kind of coming together. And I remembered that, going, oh, that was like my first year there. And then suddenly I become this cast member. And what it does, it creates a different set of thinking with people. Everyone's looking at you thinking, oh, that's a cast member, don't go and talk to them. And you're thinking, I can't go and talk to anyone because no one will come and talk to me. So then it creates this divide and this sense of arrogance that, oh, you think you're better than everybody else, but you don't. But then you also feel incredibly lonely. So your little bubble then becomes the cast. And if that cast doesn't get along, then you're absolutely screwed.
Yeah, it was really strange actually, because on my second season, so I started mid-season for the first season, and the second one, I auditioned to be in cast, and I actually got a phone call from, I've done it again, I've forgotten her name.
Karen.
Onions, Karen, thank you. So I got a name, I got a call from our Karen, telling me that I hadn't got cast, and that I was still going to be a coat. And as much as I'd told myself I didn't mind, I was absolutely distraught because I really, really wanted it. And so I rang up Resort and said, you know, can I have a room with my boyfriend who'd also got called back as a coat, and we wanted to share a chalet together. And the head of production was on the phone and said to me, oh well, he might not want to share with a cast member. And I was like, what do you mean? And she said, well, he might not want to share with a cast member, you're cast. And I was like,
Judy we're talking about.
Yeah. And I was like, what? And she was like, yeah, we're offering you cast. So I don't know whether they'd offered it to someone else and they turned it down, so they just chose me later, or whether Karen had made a mistake or what. But they actually said to me, we're not starting rehearsals until this date, but there's 2 weeks where we've got people on Resort, so would you mind coming back earlier and just acting as a coat for 2 weeks before you go into cast? So in some ways it was really nice, because I came back with all my friends, and you know, I wasn't above them as it were, because you know, I was still a coat, but as a result, when the cast came, I was seen as still being a coat, so I kind of didn't gel with them as quickly, and you know, it took a long time. So, and then you've got like the bar staff and the cleaners who probably think that we're all up ourselves and all the same, but actually there was levels within that. So that was a bit of waffle, wasn't it? Sorry, but that seems relevant.
Absolutely, because I mean, we touched on it a little bit with Gary and Colin in the first season. That
yes, yeah, you did, yeah.
And you'd have a conversation with people on a night out, and they go, "Well, you guys are all up yourself." You'd be like, I don't know why, because obviously we were out there talking to guests, and you had to put on this
a persona,
outgoing persona that was forward, and obviously you get the guests' attention quite a lot, and people talk about you, and I'm sure you used to get letters from kids and stuff as well, as we all did. So they, you know, there was kind of this miscommunication where people thought we were up ourselves, but I think it was more of a miscommunication and a misunderstanding rather than that being the reality of the situation. I don't know, but I don't know if you experienced.
No, I was totally up myself. I was totally there, and I knew.
No, you weren't. No, you weren't.
What was the terminology that Dan used? You were a
twirlies.
A twirly. A twirly.
Twirly. Yeah. So
the question we ask ourselves is, what would Dan Fudge do?
Yeah. That's the question now.
And then do the opposite.
Hey, listen, those were the things we were allowed to broadcast about what Dan Fudge did. So big shout out to Dan. Thank you for joining us last time.
We're still holding all those outtakes as collateral. So you better give in to our demands. You have an email in your inbox. And we'll be in touch.
Oh, it was really great to hear them out. I mean, Danielle, I'm still in touch with. There's a group of us that were all coats together, and we actually went away and stayed in a cabin this year even. So, you know, wow. We're still in touch. And then Brian,
well, our invite must have been missing, Mike, for that one. We didn't get that.
We're not important enough.
To be fair, you wouldn't have wanted it. It was in the Lake District, and all the electric went down the first night we were there, and we were completely cut off, and all we had was a wood fire. There was no hot water. There was nothing. It was crazy. But anyway,
Alison, that literally sounds like a weekend camp in Last Resort, in Camp Holiday.
Yeah, Yeah, it does, doesn't it? And then Brian, I haven't been in touch with since we left, and he was actually my partner in one of the shows that we did. We sang Boys to Men to each other, and he had to pick me up and spin me around and stuff. So yeah, he was a good buddy. But shall I read you a little bit of this diary then?
Go for it. Can't wait to hear it.
Okay, right. So the arrival was crap. As that's how it starts. Oh, well, here I am at the end of my first day. The arrival was crap, and they didn't have my name down, so I nearly ended up with the most piddly little room that you've ever seen. I think it was the one Dan was talking about. Actually, you couldn't even open the door properly because the bed was there. Thankfully, I got a larger room on row GB number 40. The room is okay with a window each side of the door, but the wardrobe is tiny, and so is the bed. I've made the room my own with loads of pictures and stuff, but I feel like I'm at bloody Manygate Student Village again, because it's 12:15 a.m. and the music is blasting out. At the moment, the job is looking bleak, with 6 hours split into 2. What am I supposed to do for the rest of the day? Little did I know. I watched my friend Mikey in the skyline. Oh, sorry. I watched my friend Mikey in the show today. It was quite good. That was generous of me.
Quite just okay. Quite.
It was quite good, but unfortunately not what I will be doing. I will find out tomorrow, and then I go on a bit about how much I miss my boyfriend, blah blah blah. Anyway, I'll continue tomorrow, and then it goes on. But let me see, and I'm moaning mostly. Moaning. A little bit of a mention of Judy and my first impressions on her, which I think you'll enjoy another time. And a little bit about Karen. And then, where is the bit about Steve? Aha! I was really worried about circus skills, but the guy in charge, Steve, sat me down and told me exactly what I had to do. Well, that was a first. As it happened, I really enjoyed it. And then I went to see a show.
Normally, I said that about Steve in the past as well. So
Yeah.
Ah, well, there you go. In writing on the 25th of June, 2000.
Wow.
So there you go. Little insight.
Nearly
we need
22
this
years
diary.
ago.
We need this diary. This is what
This
we
is
need.
gold. This is
It
like this has
really
written a
is.
whole 2 more seasons for us. What's
Yeah, there are definitely some plot lines in there that you could use.
And that's the thing. So it's so funny, and I'm sure Steve was making these connections too. Is when you were talking through some of that stuff, we've written 3 episodes so far, and a lot of it is exactly what you've described, which is why we haven't seen your diary at all. It's just really funny how it's our thinking has gone down that road. So thank you.
But that's because that's what it is, and that's your memories of it, and it's it's true. It's not made up. It's not. I mean, obviously the plot lines you've brought together, but the setting and the circumstances, that is how it was.
So final question from me for you, Alison.
Mm-hmm.
If you could play any character in the show, who would you want to play and why?
Oh, that's easy. Now I'm changing my mind immediately. No, I think a while ago, if I was younger, I think it would probably be Sam. I think it'd be Sam. But as an adult now, I really think Judy would, that's where I would have seen myself going. That's what I wanted to do. And that's the direction I would have taken. And also she has a very sexy voice, doesn't she? So Judy would be
allegedly.
She does. No, I see that actually. And I see, I've known you from old, so I could see you as Sam. But I could also see you as Judy as well. So yeah, well cast.
Yeah, thanks.
And here's a question for you. If you had to cast me and Mike as characters in the show, I know we voiced them all, but if we made it, what roles would you put us into?
Oh, I'm doing that thing right. Hang on, I'm trying to get the names right in my head. So Steve, I think just for comedy value, it'd have to be Wayne. just because I think that would be a really fun one to do. And then Mikey, I think, let's see now, I think it's Mark, isn't it? Is Mark the manager? I know it's not as fun a role, is it? But I could see you.
He's the guy that is the glue that holds it all together, right?
I'm sorry, guys. I know you fancy yourself as the younger ones, but that's just not how I see you now.
No. And to be fair, we had this discussion that yes, when we wrote it at the time, Mike wrote Adam to be, and I wrote Dan to be. They were the kind of roles we wanted to play if we were ever going to sell it, and this was going to be our Rocky. We were going to do this. But we had a discussion and said if we were going to play characters now, if we got this script and we sold it now, and we said yeah, but we want to be role. I think those were the two that we said we could get some real meat on the bones there. And
really,
yeah. So
and I'll be honest with you, I think Adam is an absolute moron. I really, really do. And I wrote him in my image, so God knows what I was like back then. I must have been just as bad. But he is an absolute idiot.
But I just love how genuine it is. That is from a teenage, 20s boy's mind. That is, what you thought was the way to behave. So, it's really genuine, and I think that that's a good thing to have.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
it's a reflection of a time and a state of mind that you'd never repeat now. So I think that really helps with the nostalgia piece, like you were saying. And it's been amazing for us to go back over this stuff and like you said earlier, when we've been writing this new season, we've been having conversations and saying, Dan wouldn't say that, or so or Adam wouldn't behave that way. Like they have their own personas now, and yet they've come from our mind, so they don't really exist, but we kind of have this whole personality for them all now.
I think they do in some kind of parallel universe. You've created them, and they exist now. They're living their own lives.
They exist in the minds of others.
They do. So therefore, they exist. They're as real as my memories.
They are. So, Steve, do you want to tee us up for the next series then, before we close off and say a wonderful good night to Alison?
Okay. Well, we've got a lot of excitement to come this season. Everything is all planned out. We've got shocks, surprises, funny moments, arguments about rotas. We've got everything that you could possibly imagine. And you were right, Alison, earlier. The camp has been bought by a South African gentleman who is very, very rich.
I can't wait to hear him.
Well, he's there actually on the Christmas is the end of the Halloween special. There's an after the credits. He leaves a phone message. So if you haven't heard that, then listen in and you can do it. But it is a post-credit scene that we've put in there for it. So yeah, and you get to learn a lot more about him and the stuff you said about the takeover and people coming in with new ideas and new ways and the new levels and new structures and stuff. We've got a creative director come in who's come from the West End, who is going to produce the shows, and they have opinions and they have strong thoughts on the way things will go. And I think that Judy and Wayne and even Mark are going to have some real battles on their hands. And
it's going to be really turbulent across all levels. And Alison so wonderfully put when you talked about your time there and that shift in mindset. We really explored deeply what success means, especially for the characters, and what it does from a dynamic and a friendship point of view. So we've got all that to come in the new series.
Oh, that's so exciting. I can't wait.
So 1 week after this episode goes out, episode 1's going to be live with us, and that's at the beginning of April. So stay tuned for that one.
Now, Alison, one last question for you. I keep saying one last question because there's like a million questions.
Okay.
Will you come back on the show? Will you bring your diary back on the show? Will you come back in a few months' time as we're halfway through the show and share some more stories with us? Would you be willing to do that?
It would be my absolute pleasure. I would love to come back, and thank you for having me. I've had such a brilliant time, and you're doing an amazing job. So I will continue to listen and be sharing absolutely everywhere.
Oh, thank you.
Right, so while you're sharing, then tell us what you're up to right now.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so plug. Yeah, I'm the owner of a bridal boutique in the little town of Caister, which is on the edge of the Lincolnshire Wolds. I sell reloved wedding dresses. So instead of wedding dresses just being worn once and going to landfill, it's a more sustainable way of having a wedding dress, and they're all top designer dresses, so a lot cheaper. Some of them are examples, so they've not even been worn for a wedding, and it's just a really lovely thing to do because I get to spend my days dressing people like they're my dolls, and people are there for a lovely reason because they're trying to find a wedding dress. So yeah, it's a really fantastic thing to do. And Bridal Reloved is a franchise which was actually started by one of our former colleagues who I met on resorts 20 odd years ago, and she's now my boss. So yeah, they're all across the country, and if anyone's getting married, definitely check out the website. It's www.bridalreloved.co.uk, and you'll be able to find one near you. But come to mine because mine's the nicest.
Absolutely, and be sure to follow you on Facebook and Instagram and
yes,
everywhere like
please.
that.
I'm on everything. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Google. I'm on Pinterest. You name it, I'm on it. So yes, if you would give me a follow and a bit of support, that would be wonderful.
We'll expand you out to the States as well. So if you're listening to that over there and you're getting married and you're in need of some inspiration from a wedding dress point of view, or just some good consultation, then Alison is definitely the person for you.
Or just a bit of entertainment, really. Come and watch me TikTok. Thanks, guys.
No problem at all. And it's a massive thank you for joining us and for listening and being a part of the sort of Last Resort family, which has been amazing. So that's all we've got time for tonight. I want to say a big thank you to everybody that's listened in for this preview special. Huge thank you to Ali again for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. As always, Mike has to leave us with the last word for the night. So, Mike, can you give us your last word for the day?
I'm really drawing a blank because there's so much. I need a last word. What have we covered that would give a good last word? Sorry.
What about a phrase, darling? Routines are for showgirls.
Perfect. Thank you.
Absolutely. Ali, you stole the show. Thank you so much for joining us, and join us next time here on Bad Scripts.
Bad Scripts was written and performed by Mike Garlia and Steve Jones, a Beach Tide production.